Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk a little bit about NCAA football. And I just want to identify a couple things here quickly. For fun, since college football kicked off this year, just for entertainment purposes only, I've been trying to make some college picks. I will admit, without a whole lot of research, I'm trying to get better at that and remember when I had success, when I did wager in the 90s, what made me successful at times. I've had some pretty good runs in the 90s when I was more in tune with statistical data, things of that nature. So I'm going to share with you some tips I've learned myself. This is not what anybody has told me. It's just my personal philosophy. If you, a friend, or anybody wagers on sports or whatever, I'm just going to, only talk about college football. I'm not going to talk about NFL. And I just realized there is one thing I did leave off of this list. I have a cheat sheet over here. So I'm going to mention that first. And one of the things, it's very hard to pick a winning team and also the winning point spread, whether it's a plus or minus. If you're getting points or giving points, it's very hard to do that because you have to conquer two factors. You have to have the right team and you have to have the right point spread. So I'm not any type of mathematician, but a lot of times it would make more sense to bet an over-under. So for anybody who does not understand what an over-under is, I'm going to use 50 points as an example. The total combined points in a football game, if the over-under, if the people making these predictions, setting these point spreads and lines for an over-under, let's say it's 50 points, like I said. I feel like I have a sneeze coming on. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully I can fight it off. So one team, gets X amount of points. If the total final score ends up being 49 points, that would be an under. And let's say the score is 27-23 and the over-under is 50. That would be considered a push. That means nobody wins. If the score was 30-23, the total points would be 51. That would be considered an over-win, over the 50 points. So it's a threshold. It's a point threshold. That's over-under. To me, that makes more sense statistically because basically you have a 50-50 shot at succeeding on that. And I truly believe that I feel for me, college football is more easy. It's easier. Let me try and speak grammatically correct here. It is easier for me to pick a college football game based on knowledge and experience of the past. NFL is very hard to pick. So when I did wager, I just want to reiterate, I don't wager anymore because I don't have the finances to do that. But I like to do it for entertainment purposes, just for, poops and giggles to see how I can do. I haven't really looked at NFL this year. As a matter of fact, I barely watched a little bit of college football on YouTube. But NFL is easier with the over-unders for me because you never know in the NFL from week to week what's going to happen. I'm not going to say it's rigged, but it's just so crazy. It's hard to motivate millionaires every week. They're already getting their bag. They're already getting paid. So some guys are just going through the motions. In college football, they're playing for the next level. They want to get their bag, so they're trying, they're hustling, they're doing their best. So that's my 2 cents on that. And I also have another philosophy when it comes to over under in the NFL. Barring any major like weather events, let's say like a torrential downpour, a monsoon, a blizzard, or anything like that, my philosophy is there's no reason why two NFL teams, I generally look at over unders in the NFL as around a 40-point margin for me. And when I say that, it is, I believe professional athletes, two teams combined, should be able to score 10 points a quarter combined. So if you take that over 4 quarters, that's 40 points. So a lot of times in the NFL, I would bet the over. Early in the season, it's hard to do that sometimes. So, but generally that's how my brain thinks. If you're playing in a dome where weather's not a factor, stuff like that, I generally like to bet the over. It's not always because two teams have high-powered offenses. Sometimes you sense that one team could falter, giving up like a pick six or something like that, or a return punt or something like that if they have really good special teams. So you have to consider those factors. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to the original list. So one thing I learned is never bet in-state rivalries. Like, good example, great example. It just popped into my head right now. Last night, Colorado and Colorado State played. You never know what you're going to get in a rivalry where there was so much heated dialogue this week and stuff like that. So everybody thought University of Colorado, was going to blow out Colorado State. It went to double overtime. Colorado did win, but they did not cover the point spread. That's one example of why I say stay away from in-state rivalries. Another thing I will tell you is if you have a football game with two top 25 teams going against each other, let's say it's number 12 Utah against number 3 USC or something, I stay away from those games because anything can happen. It's there. You obviously have good coaches. You have good teams. It's all about preparation. It could just come down to a difference of one turnover. So I stay away from those games. When I say I stay away, I stayed away in the past when I was very well focused. And I brought a prop up here just to talk about one other thing. It's not really on the list, but I did bring the prop. I forgot to write it down. If you're intoxicated and you're making a lot of wagers while you're intoxicated, just chasing that high, that rush, or that potential, you're probably going to fail more times than you're going to succeed. You might get lucky here and there, but don't bet a whole bunch of games at the same time. That's another thing I mentioned. Sorry about that. I just got a notification on Facebook. I forgot to shut that down. But that thing just distracted me. Oh yeah, don't bet a bunch of games at one time. So I'm just going to use round numbers as an example. Let's say I'm betting University of Maryland versus University of Timbuktu, and let's say hypothetically I bet $100 on a University of Maryland. And they're playing at, let's say, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They're at home, whatever. It doesn't matter who they're playing. It doesn't matter what the point spread is. I like to see the results after game one. So after game one, and when that finishes up around 3 o'clock or so, am I plus 100 or am I minus 100? Or I'd be actually minus 110 if they call it the juice, the penalty for losing. But it's crazy to bet a bunch of games at the same time. I don't recommend that. That's another thing that's not on the list, but it popped into my head. So wait to see where you stand after your first game. And if you see something you like at the next time slot, let's say if I was plus 100, I may drop the next wager down to $50 and see how I make out on game two. So if game two, wager two, whatever you want to call it, ends up being a loss, it's minus. You're going to be at minus 55 with the juice, the penalty, as it was back then. But you're still plus 45. So now you can go to your next wager, either do a $50 wager or whatever, but keep it in different time slots so you know where you stand. So you're never going to be up a whole bunch, but eventually you're going to hit a streak where you are I'm going to stop the camera for 1 minute and also hit pause at the same time. Sorry about that. I'm back. Hopefully I can edit that part out. Anyway, so let's say you're plus 45, right? And after the first two time slots, whatever, and let's say there's a game you feel confident with in the evening and you like it. So let's say you wager $100 and you're at plus 45. So now you're taking it. There's always going to be a one point in time where you're taking a risk. But if you start off with a positive result, it kind of gives you some wiggle room going forward. So like I said, we're at plus 45 after our two hypothetical wagers. And now we're going to move into game three. There's two ways you can look at it. It all depends, it comes down to greed, basically. I'm just using increments of 50 and 100 for right now. So let's say you wager a 100 in the third time slot and you succeed. You're plus 145. I'm okay with plus 145 as a part-time job. You don't want to look at it as a job, because that's when you can get in trouble. But a part-time hobby, I guess, is a better term. But if you lose, now you're so 110, 140. I don't have the numbers in. My brain's freezing up here. What's that? 115 minus 40. So what's that, like 70? You're not going to be down a whole lot. It's going to be, what's that, $35, $40, whatever it is. I forget the math here. Just trying to do this off the cuff. Plus I'm seeing on my screen, somebody just messaged me, so I'm a little distracted. But so if plus 145, I'm okay with that, So and then there's like Pacific time slots. I generally don't mess with those because I don't know enough about those teams. But I would get these publications that would really tell you a lot of stuff. The point spread when teams play on grass. There's something they call ATS, against the spread. A lot of stuff like that. So you can get really, really detailed. Once again, I like following coaches. That's my main number one priority. So once again, like, for example, this is talking NFL, but I love the Dallas Cowboys. I've always loved the Dallas Cowboys. But I will tell you, never bet with your heart, because you're going to get burned. Your brain, your heart over reacts for your brain. So just never bet on your team. Never bet on your team. The only time I shouldn't say the only time, when I did bet on my team thinking it was a smart bet, I usually got burned. So I learned over the years, do not bet with your heart. The other thing is just don't do it. Just look at logic if you can. You have to separate your heart from logic. Here's another really good bit of information. After about 3 or 4 weeks, you can get a trend for what I like to look for, and this is really good information. This always helped me the most, is you have to do a lot of research, and that's when these publications were really, really helpful. But how teams do in the plus and minus takeaway ratio. Do you have more interceptions and fumble recoveries than you have given up? So, if, let's say I'm going to use an example after 4 weeks of college football, are you at plus 12? Are you 12 to the positive, or are you minus 12? If you're minus 12, it's really hard to win games. So those types of statistical information is really helpful. Generally, after week 3, you can kind of get a feel for how teams are playing, how organized they are, how motivated they are. But once again, you also have to take into effect, what the level of opposition that they've been playing. A lot of big college programs start the season off week 1 with a pansy schedule, like a real soft team. They treat it basically week 1 sometimes as like a preseason game. So you have to take that into factor too. And then take it game by game. In game 1, if you're playing a really soft team or a lower level team, another college level, and let's say you had plus 10 in that week 1 because you're playing a really, really soft team that just really had no business playing you. They're just doing it for the money. You have to take that into factor. So you kind of have to figure out the averages, like say Colorado and Colorado State probably did not have, plus 10, or minus 10. It was probably pretty close. So now we're going to move on to the next topic. Like I said briefly before, I love to follow college football coaches. A lot of times, one of my keys to success was when there was, let's say, a traditionally poor program, like a Power 5 conference team, that got a new coach and that was really successful at a different school, came into a new program. A lot of people forget. They just think of the old university. And when you bring in a really good college football coach, I'll give you a really good example. Sonny Dykes at TCU. He's had a lot of great success. And he was with, like, I think SMU, some other pro. He slings the ball all over the field. He's always had great offensive teams. And a lot of people forgot about TCU. TCU has been up, they've been down, they've been up and then been down. Look at what they did last year based on a really highly successful football coach. So just because they may have failed at one time does not mean they're a bad coach. They could have had a really poor defensive coordinator that really didn't help their cause. Another thing I like to watch for is weather reports. Obviously, if your team is structured towards passing the ball and you're going to be playing a football game in 35, 40 mile an hour winds outdoors, you're going to struggle. Also, if you're playing, let's say, in Buffalo or somewhere in New York where it's an outdoor venue and you're expecting 12 to 16 inches of snow, you're going to be challenged. So those are some of the things you need to look for. Also, you really, really need to be focused on the injury report. The injury report is very crucial. A lot of people do not follow that enough. You can get more on an injury report in the NFL than you really can with college, but generally in the NFL, if they're playing on Sunday, I believe the injury report has to be released by Thursday at like 4 p.m. or I know it's Thursday. So if you see one team, let's say the Dallas Cowboys, on their injury report has 12 players. Some are questionable, some are doubtful, some are out, and they're playing, let's say, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Philadelphia Eagles only have 3 people mentioned on their injury report, and those 3 were maybe just questionable. I probably would not be betting on the Dallas Cowboys due to all those injuries. Too much opportunity for failure. So that's where you have to do a little bit of research if you take it seriously. And if you're trying to gain profitably, anybody can make wagers just as a hobby, just to see what happens. Can I get lucky? But if you really want to do your homework, and you can be profitable if you stick to a structured regimen and treat it seriously. So that's just my 2 cents. I wanted to share that. I know people see me making my predictions weekly, and they're probably thinking like, this is the guy that should not be. I'm not wagering. I'm just doing it for entertainment purposes only. And there may be people out there in a better financial position that might like absorbing some of this information. But anyway, with that being said, folks, I do love me some football. I love me some barbecue. I love cooking. So, hopefully you guys can enjoy some of those things today. And remember, folks, if you're not yet on a Dallas Cowboys bandwagon, it's time to cowboy up. Peace out, folks. And they're called America's team for a reason. So, peace, folks. Love y'all. Even the haters. Peace out.